When I started reading the scriptures, I gravitated to the Ecclesiastes. I don't know, maybe it's because of the song turn. They pulled some of the scriptures out of Ecclesiastes for that song. But I found it fascinating. So I want to touch on Ecclesiastes a little bit. No one knows who wrote Ecclesiastes. The tradition says it was King Solomon. But son of David could mean anyone in David's royal line. David had several sons. The title comes from the Greek word ecclesia, the assembly. The spokesman, Ecclesiastes, sometimes translated as the preacher or the teacher, is addressing a gathering. So what can we tell about the spokesman from the reading of the book? He sounds like an old man who has searched for meaning in many different ways. Now realizing that he won't live forever, he looks back over his life in order to help younger people get their priorities straight. Like the author of the book of Job, the spokesman observes that a good life does not necessarily bring a person what he most desires. Like the authors of the book of Proverbs, he repeatedly advises his listeners to fear, that is, to respect and obey Yahweh, just like the song. But in the end, he says nothing will matter. Absolutely pointless. The spokesman says over and over again, everything is pointless. Pleasure, accomplishments, riches, hard work, honor, even the pursuit of wisdom. People spend their lives on these things and always deferring enjoyment until after they have achieved their goals. And then they die. And the sun keeps on rising and setting, and the next generation forgets all about them. But yet, the book of Ecclesiastes is not just about death and futility. It is also about happiness. Instead of trying to catch the wind by pursuing pointless goals, the spokesman recommends contentment with what we already have. There is nothing better for people to do than to eat, drink, and find satisfaction in their work. He says in Ecclesiastes 2, verse 24, there is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of Elohim. Our possessions are a gift from Yahweh. And Yahweh also gives us the power to enjoy it. Ecclesiastes 5:19. Every man also to whom Elohim has given riches and wealth, and has given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of Elohim. So I recommend the enjoyment of life. The people have nothing better to do under the sun than to eat, drink, and enjoy themselves. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 15. Then I commanded that mirth, because a man has no better thing under the sun than to eat and to drink and to be merry. For that shall abide with him of his labor the days of his life, which Elohim gives him under the sun. And you don't wait too long to do this. He warns you, young people should enjoy yourselves while you're young. Ecclesiastes 11, verse 9. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the day of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thy heart, and in the sight of thy eyes. But know this, that for all these things Elohim will bring thee into judgment. And then the book closes with a haunted poem that begins, remember your Creator when you are young, starting in Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 1. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun, or the light, or the moon, or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few. And those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets. When the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goes to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto Elohim who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. Moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yes, he gave good heed, and sought out and set in order many proverbs. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as golds, and as nails fastened by the master of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. Of making many books, there is no end, and much study is weariness of the flesh. Let us hear the conclusion of the matter. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Elohim shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Yahweh has given us a beautiful world, and only a few years in which to appreciate it. Ecclesiastes reminds us to pay attention to the good things we have right now, and to thank Yahweh for them. Now I want to go over the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, verse by verse. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Verse 1 identifies the author of the son of David, not Solomon. The Hebrew word that is translated preacher is a word that means a collector of sentences. It can mean a preacher, a lecturer, a public speaker, or a debater. So the verse could read the words of the debater, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. This word is used 7 times in the Old Testament, all of them in the book of Ecclesiastes. In verse 2, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. This verse strikes the key note of the whole book of Ecclesiastes. In using this expression, vanity of vanities, the author indicates the unity of the book. If you look at the word from a view that there is no Elohim, then all will be vanity. Life without Yahweh makes no sense. It has no purpose. The word translated vanity in its primary meaning denotes breath or vapor. The word vanity literally means that which vanishes. It's nothing. You go to get it, and it vanishes. It's not there. It's an emptiness. It occurs 37 times in this book. In verse 3, what advantage does man have in all his work, which he does under the sun? If there is no Elohim, if there is no future reward or punishment, if there is no heaven or hell, what difference does it make? He's toiling in vain. A man by the name of Charles Ellicott had said, man is perpetually toiling, yet of all of his toil there remains no abiding result. The natural world exhibits a spectacle of unceasing activity, with no real progress. The sun, the winds, the water are all in motion, yet they do but run around, and nothing comes of it. The phrase under the sun refers to the natural world. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 4. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. What is life of a man upon the earth compared to the age of the earth? Many people come and go, and the mention of them, the memory of them, is soon past. If I was to mention the name Xerxes from 519 to 465 BC, I venture to say that most of the generation would not know it. Yet he was a ruler of most of the known world in his lifetime. John Trapp's commentator, he said, Xerxes, looking upon his huge army, wept to think that within less than 100 years, not one of those many should be left alive. Mortality is the stage of mutability. Mere man is but a dream of a dream, but the generation of a fancy, but an empty vanity, but the curious picture of nothing, a poor, feeble, unable, dying flash. How then can he here work out unto himself a happiness worth having? Why should he lay up and load himself with thick clay, as if his life were riveted upon eternity? In verse 5, also the sun rises and the sun sets, and hastens to its place, it rises there again. The things in nature are always in motion, yet they never change. The sun rises and the sun sets, only to rise again. Over and over again, this happens and does not end. In verse 6, blowing towards the south, then turning towards the north, the wind continues swirling along, and on its circular course the wind returns. The wind continues to blow, coming out of the south, heading towards the north, and then turning around and headed to the south. Then it will be calm. But don't worry, it will blow again. That's what it does. It never stops. In verse 7, all the rivers flow into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers flow, they flow again. All the rivers will flow into the sea, ocean. Yet the ocean does not overflow. It is never full. But the rivers never stop flowing. And they do it day in and day out. It does not cease. In verse 8 says, all things are wearisome. Man is not able to tell it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. All things wears out. The eye sees and yet wants to see more. The ear hears and yet wants to hear more. Did you see what's happening over here? Do you see what's happening over there? Hey, did you hear this story? Did you hear what happened to the neighbor? It has been said it is impossible to calculate how much anxiety, pain, labor, and fatigue are necessary in order to carry on the common operations of life. But an endless desire of gain and an endless curiosity to unfitness, a variety of results cause men to labor on. The eye sees much, but wishes to see more. The ear hears many things, but is curious to have the actual knowledge of them. So desire and curiosity carry men under the divine providence through all the labors and pains of life. In verse 9, that which has been is that which will be. That which has been done is that which will be done, so there is nothing new under the sun. You know, technology has changed, but has the desires of men? That which has been will always be. There is nothing new under the sun. Matthew Henry commented, men's heart and their corruptions are the same now as in former times. Their desire and pursuits and complaints still the same. This should take us from expecting happiness in the creature and quicken us to seek eternal blessings. How many things and persons in Solomon's day were thought very great, yet there is no remembrance of them now. In verse 10, is there anything of which one might say, see, this is new? Already it has existed for ages, which were before us. Fashions change, technology changes. We think we are modern, but so did them in the past ages. But the heart of the man changed down through the ages? I don't think so. I sit typing on a computer. Those of ages ago will sit with quill and ink. But yet we both have the same goal in mind down through the ages to communicate. Technology in farming has changed, yet it remains the same. The seed must be planted in the soil where you use it, whether you use a stick to till the ground or a 20-row planter. The seed must still be planted. In verse 11, there is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the latter things which will occur. There will be for them no remembrance among those who will come later still. History is often forgotten. Great civilizations have come and gone, and yet now their greatness is a fleeting memory, if at all. Verse 12, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. Well, right there, he's telling you who he is. Commentator Joseph Benson said, having asserted the vanity of all things in the general, he now comes to prove his assertion in those particulars wherein men commonly seek, and with the greatest probability expect to find true happiness. He begins with secular wisdom, and to show how competent a judge he was of this matter, he lays down this character, that he was the preacher, which implies eminent knowledge, and a king, who therefore had all imaginable opportunities and advantages for the attainment of happiness, and particularly for the getting of wisdom by consulting all sorts of books and men, by trying all manner of experiments, and no ordinary king, but king over Israel. Yet Yahweh's own people, a wise and happy people, whose king he was by Yahweh's special appointment, and furnished by Yahweh with singular wisdom for that great trust, and whose abode was in Jerusalem. Where were the house of Yahweh, and the most wise and learned of the priests attending upon it, and the seats of justice, and colleges or assemblies of the wisest men in their nation, all these concurring in him, which rarely do in any other man, make the arrangement, drawn from his experience, more convincing. In verse 13, and I set my mind to seek and explore by wisdom concerning all that has been done under heaven. It is a grievous task which Elohim has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with. His ambition was to find if worldly ways could provide any answers to life. He found it to be a grievous task, for only a life centered in Yahweh will give any useful answer. Outside of Yahweh, it is all vanity. Verse 14, I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after wind. He says, I've seen all that goes on in the world, how men strive to be satisfied without Elohim being the center of their lives, and I have found it is like trying to catch the wind. They can pretend they're happy, but it is all vanity. And verse 15, what is crooked cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. Apart from Yahweh, that which is crooked cannot be straightened. That which is shattered cannot be put back together. That which is torn cannot be mended. That which is lacking cannot be made full. Only Yahweh has the power to fix things completely. Verse 16, I said to myself, behold, I have magnified and increased wisdom more than all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my mind has observed a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. Not only was Solomon granted great wisdom from Yahweh, but he had personal experiences and opportunity to study from the vast amount of resources. His statement about having more wisdom than any king before him is not boasting. It's a fact. Verse 17, and I set my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I realized that this also is striving after wind. Commentator Albert Barnes said, a knowledge of folly would help him to discern wisdom and to exercise that chief function of practical wisdom, to avoid folly. Just knowing wisdom, madness or folly, is no end in itself. What good is it all this understanding without Yahweh? I can have a wall full of diplomas, but without Yahweh, all it makes me is an educated fool. In verse 18, because in much wisdom there is much grief, and increase in knowledge results in increase in pain. I realized that a long time ago. The more I look, the more I see, it's not a very good world out there. Adam Clark said, the more we know of ourselves, the less satisfied shall we be with our own hearts. And the more we know of mankind, the less willing shall we be to trust them, and the less shall we admire them. That is true. Proverbs 3 verse 5, trust in Yahweh in all thy heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. Psalms 146 verse 3, put not your trust in princes, nor in the sons of man, in whom there is no help. Isaiah 12 verse 2, behold, Yahweh is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid, for Yahweh is my strength and my song, and he also is become my salvation. Proverbs 3 verse 1, my son, forget not my law, but let thy heart keep my commandments. Proverbs 4 verse 4, he taught me also and said unto me, let thy heart retain my words, keep my commandments, and live. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Yahweh shall bring every work into judgment, and every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So may Yahweh bless you with mercy. May Yahweh bless you with knowledge. May Yahweh bless you with peace. In the name of Yeshua.